Want to welcome you guys back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast presented by FanDuel. In tonight's episode, we have three segments in total that we'll be covering and going over with you guys. Some Eastern Conference power rankings from Yahoo Sports, the latest from ESPN of what they feel about the Detroit Pistons offseason, and Wendell Moore possibly going overseas this season. So let's get into the power rankings first. So this does come from Yahoo Sports, and they came out with their Eastern Conference power rankings. Now, I want to go over this with you guys and just kind of react to each one individually. So we'll be going through 1 through 10 with their rankings. Knicks coming at number one. I don't really have a problem with the Knicks being number one, given they just won the NBA championship and they were a top three team in the East last year. Like, I have no problems with the Knicks being number one. I think anytime you're a defending champion, you should be in number one or number two in most power rankings. So no problem with the Knicks at number one. Number two, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, I don't really have a problem with the Cavs being as high as two. They just saw the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals, obviously got absolutely waxed by them, but they did make the Eastern Conference Finals. They did beat the Pistons in the Eastern Conference semifinals in a 7-game series. Don't really have a problem with the Cleveland Cavaliers being as high as two in this ranking. Number three, this is where I do have a problem. The Boston Celtics. I don't really think the Boston Celtics should be a top three team in any Eastern Conference power ranking. They got bounced by the Philadelphia 76ers in the first round. They just traded Jalen Brown. They're older with Paul George. Yes, they did get more help in the middle with Mitchell Robinson. Do I think Jason Tatum can elevate them as high as a second seed in the East? I'm not really entirely sure. I think they actually got worse this offseason just to save a little bit of money in the aprons. I don't have Boston as high as three in my Eastern Conference power rankings. I just don't. Philadelphia 76ers, I think, should be higher than Boston. I think you could argue they should be as high as two with the Cleveland Cavaliers, just based off the offseason they had. They got off of Paul George's money. They still have Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid. They're getting Jalen Brown. They signed Dean Wade. They got Anthony Simons. They drafted LeBaron Philon. Like, they have had such a great offseason where I would probably put them two. Like, I arguably could put them two up there with the Knicks. I think they're going to be a top tier Eastern Conference team. I know Joel Embiid's health is always TBD. We don't really know how healthy he's going to be, but I think still with Tyrese Maxey and Jalen Brown, they can hold down the fort if Embiid isn't 100% healthy. I like their roster. I honestly love their offseason. I feel like they've probably been the most aggressive team in the Eastern Conference in terms of not only free agent signings, NBA draft, and trades. Like, Philly to me should be higher than four, in my personal opinion. The Toronto Raptors come in at number five. Now, Toronto to me, I think it's unfair to put them in a power ranking in the top five because we don't know what's going to happen with the Kawhi Leonard aspirations case. Like, there's a world where maybe the trade just doesn't go through. It's a frozen trade right now because the league is still investigating with what happened with aspirations and the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard and how much was Kawhi involved with it. Obviously, we still don't know. There's a lot of details that just have not been released yet. That's why I think for top five, I would maybe have them a little bit lower just in case, things hit the fan and Grady Dick and Brandon Ingram actually have to come back to the Raptors. I mean, there was a report that like those guys, Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick in particular, could be actually on the training camp roster because they're not really entirely sure how long this aspirations case is going to last. But if they don't find anything, I think top five is actually a pretty fair grade and ranking with the Raptor stuff. Scotty Barnes to have a lot of their core guys on the team that will help them get better. They also had a really good draft of getting Alan Graves, who I think is going to be a big contributor for them. Colin Murray Boyles, I think, is going to have a breakout year for them. The Raptors are poised to be a top tier team in the East as well. Now, the Indiana Pacers jump to sixth. Now, obviously, they were one of the worst teams in the NBA last year because Tyrese Halliburton was hurt, and they lost their top five pick that they probably would have had. Did go to, I can't remember which team actually got it off the top of my head. I think it was the Clippers, if I do remember correctly. Yeah, it was the Clippers. But they did trade for Ivica Zubac. Tyrese is coming back. Still have Pascal Siakam, Obi Toppin, Aaron Naismith. Like they still have a good roster functionally. I just don't know how Tyrese is going to look going into the season. It might take him a couple of months to just get into the flow of things. Missing basketball for a full calendar year. Um, I think everyone kind of adjusts to having an Achilles tear differently. We'll just have to wait and see what does happen with Hallie. Like if he looks good, looks like his old form, during the playoffs, then yeah, like you could argue that the Pacers should be higher on this list. I think 6 is a little bit high because we just don't know how is he going to look this year in the East. But that's just my opinion on it. I mean, 6 might sound like a fair grade for them, but to me, I think they should be a little bit lower on the list. Miami, obviously, they got bounced in the playoffs. They lost to the Charlotte Hornets. They weren't able to challenge the Magic to make the playoffs. They got bounced. They traded Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, and a few other pieces to Milwaukee so they could land Giannis. Now, Giannis in Miami, there's still players for LeBron, possibly Bam Adebayo. They just don't have floor spacing. Now, I don't know how they're going to address more 3-point shooting. Maybe they just don't care, and they're just going to have a lot of paint touches for Giannis and just let Giannis go downhill and get to the free throw line and just live in the paint. Cool. I think 7 is appropriate for how they did last year. I do think Giannis does elevate them a little bit higher, but I still kind of wonder roster construction wise, are they going to be a top 5 team in the East? Those are the questions I have. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if Giannis elevates them as like a top 4 team in the East. I just don't know. The Pistons come in at number 8. Now, I'll give my opinion why I think this is actually too low for them. They won 60 games last year, which was a hell of an accomplishment. Had a very successful season. Even though they didn't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, they were 1 game away from making it. They still had a successful season, won their first playoff series in I don't know how many damn years. Nobody had them as a number 1 seed or a 60-win team. There's that. I understand losing Tobias Harris was huge. He was your second leading scorer in the playoffs and a very big locker room and a culture guy. You also lose Isaiah Stewart, who is the longest tenured Piston as well, an elite shot blocker. I get that. But I do think the offseason that they've had maybe warrants them at least around the 6-5 range with the Pacers or the Raptors, just because you still have your core intact. You still have Cade Cunningham. You still have Asar Thompson. Jalen Duren will resign. Obviously, the restricted free agency thing right now, it's how it goes. Restricted free agency is just really annoying for the fans. Like I feel for the fans because we have to come up here and give you guys like every little detail of like what's going on. Like I saw some stuff today that I was like, do I really want to talk about it again? I'm just to the point where I'm probably not going to even bring it up unless there's some like groundbreaking news of like sign and trade possibilities, which there isn't any, or he does resign with the Pistons and we get a brand new contract. I'm just not going to talk about it. But the Pistons still have their young core of Cade, Asar, and Duren will resign. Just the wait and see thing with negotiations right now. But you're getting younger at power forward. You're getting more athletic with John Collins. You bring in Isaiah Joe, who's been one of the league's best 3-point shooters, who shot 40% from 3 the past 3 seasons. Taurean Prince is another 3-point sniper. You're also bringing in a guy that I don't know if he'll make the roster. Gary Harris is also a 40% 3-point shooter, but at this stage of his career, he hasn't been the healthiest. But you've kind of supplemented more 3-point shooting around Cade, and this will be the most spacing he's ever had in his NBA career, which I feel like if you kind of like go back to the Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway junior year, JB's first year, when they added more spacing around Cade, like the half court sets had so much space and the lane wasn't clogged that he was able to operate in pick and rolls much more easier, in my opinion. I think with the type of spacing that you're going to get from Isaiah Joe and John Collins and others off the bench, they'll be fine. They're also not going to have to suffer through the Karis LeVert minutes. No, like I'm sure Karis LeVert is a very nice guy, but just the minutes he got off the bench were just so underwhelming. Like every time he came into the game, any lead that we did have seemed like it just went away. Like defensively, I thought he was great. Just offensively, it was just a black hole at times. Like you're getting off the Karras minutes, which is just a win in itself, if you do ask me. Paul Reed's going to get elevated to center number 2, backup center. And offensively, the production that you saw out of Paul Reed, not only in the regular season when he was able to play, but also the playoffs. Like he was so big in the playoffs, going up against Evan Mobley, getting the Pistons back in the games against Wendell Carter in the Magic series. Like Paul Reed is just going to thrive in getting more opportunity and more minutes. And I think he's just going to get better. And I think sometimes we forget Paul Reed is actually still pretty young. He's not even 30 yet. Like Paul Reed is a guy that I think the Pistons want to keep around for a long time because there's a lot of value of him of being a backup center, and we've seen him starting to pitch too. Remember the Bulls game early last year where he had an excellent double-double game, couple steals, couple blocks. Like Paul Reed's going to be fine with the Pistons as a backup. Just for me to say, I don't think it warrants the Pistons being as the 8th best team ranked in the Eastern Conference. Like this is basically saying, yeah, we think they're gonna kind of like flirt with the play-in. I just don't think that. Will they take a little bit of a drop defensively? Sure. Isaiah Stewart provided a lot in rim protection and switches. Like, let's not kind of just say that they're going to be the same defensive team because I don't think they're going to be, but I think they'll be more equipped in half-court sets with perimeter spacing, and you're getting a team, in my opinion, that is going to have more options in backup point guard with Dana Shankins and Abuka Corey. Like you don't have to solely rely, on Karis LeVert. There was even the Jaden Ivey minutes a little bit before we did deal him at the deadline. Like I think this team will be completely fine. You did bring back Javonte Green as well, who I think will have a really big role off the bench. Another year of Ron Holland developing, another year of Sir Thompson being a little bit more aggressive with his offensive game, which I've heard he's putting in a lot of work with his jump shot and 3-point shot this summer. So expect big things from Asar this upcoming season offensively, on top of the first team all defense, being a finalist for defensive player of the year. Like I think the Pistons will be fine. I really do. I know I ranted for I don't know how many minutes about the Pistons. I just saw this ranking. I was like, dude, there's no way that they're the 8th best team in the East. Like you could argue 5th, 6th, in my opinion. The Magic, they haven't really done anything in the offseason outside of firing Jamal Mosley and bringing in Sean Sweeney, which happy for Sean Sweeney, who was an assistant with the Pistons under Dwayne Casey. He's going to be a great coach. Now, Orlando, I'm not really sure how they're going to run. Like the Sean Sweeney tried to use the Giannis approach with Paulo Banchero. And what I mean by that is just have the ball in Paulo Banchero's hand and kind of make him like this point forward. Like, is Paulo just going to have like a breakout year under Sean Sweeney? And, they obviously still have their core, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black saw an increased role with Jalen Suggs being injured. And then he started, putting together like really good games the second half of the year. Like Orlando's still going to be a team in the East that I think it's at least a top 5, top 6 team in the standings. In my opinion, it's just health. Like, can they stay healthy? Can they get a full healthy season out of Franz? If they can't, then they're kind of in the bottom tier of the East like they were this year. And the Charlotte Hornets number 10 to kind of just cap off this Eastern Conference power rankings. Their offseason, man, like I didn't think they were going to pull the trigger on LaMelo Ball, and they did, and they got some draft picks. They got Naz Reid out of it, which I'm kind of jealous. I've always liked Naz Reid from afar. I think he would have been like a perfect power forward for the Pistons. So they get him. They get more tough. They draft Hannes Steinbach, who is going to be a good player for them. They still have Con Knipple, Brandon Miller. They get rid of Miles Bridges. They get more rotational pieces to kind of, build out their roster. And they have a bunch of picks now that kind of looks like they're trying to be like the Eastern Conference OKC, just trading off on their good players and just stacking draft picks, like future draft picks. So I think Charlotte will be a team that is in a similar boat of playing territory. I just kind of wonder, like, bringing back Kobe White and you have Nipple still with the Brandon Miller and the Naz Reid, like, is that enough to, be around the 8 to 10 range in the East? I'm not sure. I feel like the East is probably going to be very competitive this year, but that's just my opinion on it. Again, I think the Pistons should be much higher than 8th in Yahoo Sports Eastern Conference rankings. Now, I know it's really early. We haven't had any preseason, no training camp, but I think a lot of national media companies are just kind of anticipating that the Pistons are going to take a giant step back this year just because they didn't make that quote unquote big move or that big splash. But I still have them being a pretty competitive team in the East, at least in the top 5 in Eastern Conference standings, excuse me. But that's just my opinion on it. We're going to get into segment 2 next, but before we get into segment 2, we have to hear from our sponsors over at the FanDuel Sportsbook, you guys. And right now over at FanDuel, they have Detroit Pistons over lines for 50.5 wins. That's what they have them set at. And for the over, the odds are minus 105. And for the under at 50.5 wins, it's minus 120. I've told you guys, I just told you guys in segment 1 with the Yahoo Sports ranking. I think the Pistons are over. I think they will be over for the 50.5 wins. Now, we haven't had the schedule yet. I'm saying take the over. I just think the way that this roster is constructed, they'll be a good regular season team. I'll be interested to see what disgruntled star is out there, what players the Pistons are linked to as the season does progress during the trading deadline, because the contracts they gave out, I think they're very easy to stack up to get to a $40 million player, to possibly get a secondary option, which we're going to get into segment 2. Next, we're just going to take a quick break, but once we get back from break, we're going to be getting into the ESPN piece with the Pistons and their offseason. We will be right back, you guys. Okay, you guys, we're back. Now, we're going to get into the ESPN section of this podcast. Now, ESPN has a article earlier today that I was reading, and it was like things we've learned about each team during the offseason so far. So they wrote a couple of paragraphs about the Pistons. I'll be reading it on the screen so you guys can see. It says, what we've learned, Cade Cunningham's life didn't get much easier. Now, right off the bat, I do think his life did get easier for spacing. Like, Isaiah Joe is going to make his life much easier. I think Isaiah Joe could have a similar type of season. I'm not saying he's going to break Malik Beasley's 3-point record, but it wouldn't surprise me if he made over 200 plus threes this year. Excuse me. We just saw Duncan Robinson do it. Like, I think adding another 3-point sniper, whether Isaiah Joe is starting or coming off the bench, he's going to make Cade's life easier. That's the first thing I just disagree with right off the bat. It also goes into say the Pistons can't claim, much progress this summer. They're still loggerheads with the restricted free agent Jalen Duren. They replaced Tobias Harris with John Collins, and they added Isaiah Joe to address their wonky spacing. Yeah, the spacing last year, like I'll agree, was wonky. Outside of Duncan Robinson, like that paint was so clogged. It just was like we didn't have a lot of spacing. They did replace Tobias with John Collins. They get younger, they get more athletic. They get a guy that I think will have a much better season than he did with the Clippers last year, just because John Collins was playing like maybe fourth option because they had Kawhi and James Harden. I think he could have a similar season to when he played in Utah, when he was getting more touches and he was a little bit more involved in the offense. I still think John Collins is going to be maybe a 2B option with Jalen Duren kind of splitting those touches. But I think John Collins will be a better long-term fit. Not to mention he shoots around the same volume as Tobias Harris, but at a higher percentage. He shot over 40% from three, and you can kind of look at his career. He's been pretty close to a 40% three-point shooter. Shot years where it's like 39, 38%. So adding John Collins in the front court, I think, is going to be a player that Cade looks for in pick and rolls and lobs, especially lobs, because John Collins can still get up. And he's younger. Like, he's not even 30 years old yet. But I know I digress. They also go on to say, while guard Abuka Corey represented good value at the number 17 pick, his up and down summer league play suggested he's unlikely to be a difference maker as a rookie. After shocking the world by winning 60 games, the Pistons opted to not make a big splash. The one thing I will say about Abuka Corey Summer League is, can we just agree that was the most dog shit roster I've ever seen? And like, I'm not clowning the Pistons for having a bad Summer League roster, but they had their Motor City Cruise guys like try to take over games. And that's no shot at their Motor City Cruise guys. Like, they're trying to get a two-way, they're trying to make an NBA roster. But I'm not going to take too much stock in the roster that was around him. He easily could have had 8-9 assist games in the summer league if his teammates were hitting their shots. Like, I am not going to put stock in summer league. The one thing with Abuka Corey that I came away impressed with was just the position he can get in the paint. Now, I'll be able to just throw dump off passes to Jalen Duren or Paul Reed, or if you want to play him next to Cade Cunningham, like, he'll be able to bring the ball up the court and you can play Cade off ball. Like, I'm not going to put that much stock into a bad summer league roster and saying that he's not going to be a difference maker. I do think it will be a battle for backup point guard in camp between him and Danish Jenkins, but I think Abuka Corey will have a good rookie season. I'm not sitting up here saying he's going to be rookie of the year, but to say, he's not going to be good because he had an up and down summer league. And yeah, the shots for 3 games in a row where he shot 28, 29%. Again, like, the roster around him was really bad. I don't even think any of his centers could actually set him a decent pick. Like, what happens when he actually plays with quality big man and Jalen Duren and Paul Reed? Like, what happens then? Like, right? I'm not going to take too much stock into summer league. Okay, getting back into the next section of this article. It says, Cunningham has endured much more challenging circumstances as Detroit's franchise player, but he is poised to enter next season without a quality secondary creator. Once again, the roster holes didn't stop the Pistons from claiming the East top seed last season, but it certainly reared its ugly head in the playoffs. Opposing defenses found success by loading up on Cunningham to shot circus Detroit's offense, especially late in games. Now, this is the part of the article I will agree with. Yeah, like, we don't really have a quote-unquote secondary scorer, a secondary creator. Now, I do think that Danish Jenkins last year did kind of get into the secondary creator. He was able to not only create his own shot, but he was also able to, lead a team when Cade was out. He was able to, play next to Cade in the final, what was that? Maybe final 2 games in the playoffs against the Cavs, and he did fairly well. Like, he was hitting his 3-point shots. Obviously, I think what this reads is Pistons didn't make a big splash for us to write in our blog post or write in our article and have them higher in our rankings. Like, that's all it really says. I do think that, the secondary score creator conversation is something that a lot of national pundits have just kind of pointed at the Pistons of why haven't they done it. It's not that they haven't tried. Like, we heard that they tried to get Kyrie. Dallas wasn't interested in moving him. They tried in restricted free agency with Austin Reeves, and then the Lakers decided, oh, we're actually going to keep Austin. Like, so you guys can't go after him. They tried with Kawhi. Kawhi's camp said no thanks. He doesn't want to come to Detroit. They tried with Trey Murphy. The Pelicans are just high off their ass with their asking price. They've tried with Michael Porter Jr. in the past. It's not for a lack of trying. These teams just don't want to help a Eastern Conference team right now that won 60 games and won 44 games the year before. They want like 3 first-round picks and pick swaps and young talent to maybe get a secondary creator next to Cade, right? Again, I think they'll still look for ways to get better. They'll look to see if it does make sense for them to offload on that many picks for a player. It really depends which star is going to be disgruntled this year. Every year, there's always one player that's not happy with their role with the new teams that they either got traded to or free agent signings, whatever it may be, or they're a couple years left on the contract. But I think the Pistons will look for opportunities, whether it's before the season or whether it's midway through the season or at the trading deadline to get better. The last part of the paragraph says the Pistons top 8 players all logged at least 1,700 minutes or appeared in at least 72 games last season, raising the possibility of regression. If they can't maintain that standard of availability, Detroit should be able to count on another season of elite defense, but it must keep searching for a dynamic sidekick to improve its playoff outlook. Now, I will agree with that as well. Okay. So I think my stance on the Pistons and their offseason so far, you guys, is when I look at Detroit right now, this is a very good regular season roster. Like, you could probably win like 50 to 55 games or 54 games. I want to put 55 on them. Maybe 50 to 54 games with this roster. But you're going to have similar challenges in the playoffs when it's slowed down and it becomes more of a half-court game. Like, that's why getting that secondary creator or the secondary scorer, like, yeah, Danis can do it in certain situations, but is he a consistent secondary creator? Not right now, just not right now. But I think they'll look for opportunities for them to try to get a secondary creator, so we don't have a similar result in the playoffs where we're kind of having the same conversations with this team. It's like, when are they actually going to get that number 2 option and that secondary creator next to Cade, so he doesn't have to have the ball in his hands and have damn near like a 30% usage rate for another season. I think that's something that this front office, Trajan Langdon and company, are still exploring as we're talking right now. Like, they're looking for ways for this team to get better. They really are. So, there are a couple of pieces in this article that I didn't agree with. I think the first part of the article I just didn't agree with is, Cade's life didn't get much easier. I think it got easier in terms of 3-point shooters that he just didn't have last year. I think they get younger with John Collins, and I would not put that much stock in Abuka, Corey, Summerly, because that roster was so damn bad, you guys. It was so damn bad, and I think we could all agree there. But we have one more topic we're going to get into, and it's Wendell Moore. Now, he was a two-way player last year, right? Didn't really play that many games with the Pistons, but the previous year he was actually a standard contract player. If you guys remember, we traded up in the draft to select Bobby Klitman, and Wendell Moore was a throw-in piece. But this is from Eurohoops.net via hoopsite.com. And it says, after the official confirmations of the arrivals of, I'm going to butcher this name, I think that says Cavaliers Hayes, Lamar Stevens, and Alessandro Pajala, the Black and Whites are close to signing another player. According to Mazart Sports, Wendell Moore Jr. is on the verge of joining Partizan, and it seems that they will win the race for the American signature against Tel Aviv. Moore Jr., who has played shooting guard, was selected with the 26th pick in the 2022 NBA draft by the Dallas Mavericks, but immediately released him to the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's also played with the Detroit Pistons and Charlotte Hornets, then again with the Pistons while he played last year via Eurohoops.net. Now, Wendell was just a depth piece for the Pistons the past 2 seasons. He played his most with the Detroit Pistons during JB Bickerstaff's first year, where he was just kind of a throw-in piece, and he was a depth signing at forward, guy that's very athletic in the open court, just can't shoot from the perimeter, but looks like he's going to go get the bag over in Europe. Did kind of want to update you guys on that. He was a two-way contract player, but we have three new two-way contract players in Elijah Harkless, Ugonna and Yenso, and Isaac Jones. But did want to update you guys on just little Piston news, because someone may be asking, where's Wendell Moore Jr.? There's like one person out there that's probably going to ask me that. Now you know that looks like he is going to go overseas and go play for a European club over there. But I did want to wrap up this podcast with you guys today. Let me know what you think of the Eastern Conference Power Rankings by Yahoo Sports, ESPN's opinion on Cade Cunningham and how his life hasn't got any easier, and this the offseason projection by them. I'll talk to you guys down below in the comment section. Like always, hope you guys are staying safe. Take care, and we will catch you guys in the next podcast episode. Also, before we wrap up, we are actually going to be doing our first live stream this Sunday, 1 p.m. I'm going to be joined by Zarek, talk with him about the summer league, and we're also kind of getting into just the Pistons offseason overall. I know we haven't done a live stream in probably about a month or so. I know you guys missed the live streams, but we'll be back this Sunday at 1 talking with Zarek. But talk to you guys very soon. Peace.